here we go. My top 5 favorite Superman villains. Which might sound weird because I'm sure people don't know too much about the Superman villains. Don't think he has too many villains because we keep recycling the same ones in the movies. But let's talk about number 5, Doomsday. I'm sure plenty of people know who Doomsday is. Mostly because he was the only villain to kill Superman, successfully kill Superman. And that's when I became aware of the character. In fact, that's when I first sort of respected the Superman character, is when he died, ironically enough. And that Death of Superman comic in the 90s, it was one of the highest selling comics ever. And that's when I really felt bad to see a heroic figure like Superman, who I've always known to be this unstoppable, just good type of character. To see him fall as hard as he does. I love the fact that he does defeat Doomsday, but then dies. The fight that they have, the destruction of Metropolis, it's pretty memorable. Sure, there's not a whole lot more to the Doomsday character. He was just this creature that killed Superman. Number 4, Lobo. Lobo is a pretty underrated villain because I first saw him on the animated series and I thought he just looked badass, first of all. He was this hired assassin of sorts from space who just had this cool look to him. White skin, he had this badass motorcycle, he had the cigar, he had all these cool guns and weapons, and I just thought, wow. Even though he's a bad guy and I shouldn't like him, I love this character. He's so cool. Nowadays, he's more of an anti-hero, which is fine, because now I can like him and not feel bad about it. But it's surprising, it's shocking that DC hasn't even attempted to make a Lobo movie. What the fuck are you waiting for? Number 3, Brainiac. Brainiac is this artificial intelligence of sorts who came from Krypton. So now that he resurfaces on Earth, he knows everything about not only Krypton, but Superman. And he uses that against him. And I think he's one of Superman's biggest foes because of that, because of his connection to his home. Maybe more shocking than Lobo, the fact that they've never used him as a villain. I mean, they've almost used him in Superman 3, but then they just turned it into a generic evil computer. Lame. But I do have major respect for Smallville because they used Brainiac and they used him up pretty well. Number 2, General Zod. I love General Zod. We've seen him a lot, sure, but Terrence Stamp in that original Superman 2, I've always loved his command of that character, his straight-laced, this is what I must do, kneel before Zod. When you look at his backstory, though, and his connection to Krypton, and how he, too, wanted to save Krypton. He thought he was doing what was right. But the destruction of Krypton crushes him. And when he gets out of the Phantom Zone, he comes to Earth, and he wants to turn Earth into Krypton, into his home, resurrect his home. You understand that. Number 1, though, as my favorite Superman villain of all time, surprise, surprise, Lex Luthor. Now, you could say that Lex is severely overused and just sort of shoved down our throats. I agree with that. There are times when I'm sick of Lex, but I sit back and I think and I realize, you know what? Out of all of Superman's villains, he is the most fascinating. Here's a guy who is nowhere near Superman's physical threat, but brain-wise, intelligent-wise, he blows Superman out of the water. Now, in the beginning, when he was a mad scientist, I didn't really find him all that interesting. I like him more as the rich billionaire who he is this big public figure, people love him, and then when Superman shows up, he's like, wait a minute, who is this guy taking my spotlight? He's an alien? He's not even from here? I want him dead. Just because of that alone. Even though he knows that Superman is a good hero, does save lives, does do good things, he doesn't care. He can't stand the idea of people loving an alien more than himself. And then even when you get to Smallville, I love what they did with the character. Having Lex and Clark be friends before any of that ever happens. They grow up together as best friends. And then when Lex starts to realize that Clark is lying about something, his powers, and how he grows resentment for him, it's another way, it's another reason for me to sympathize with the character. Michael Rosenbaum is possibly my favorite version of Lex. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of my list? Who is your favorite Superman villain? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!